Hey everybody!
What's up?
So we're back with another review. Second one today, except we're at home. Because my battery almost died and your phone looks like it might fall. No, never mind. I'm a liar. So we went and saw...
You weren't the only one.
So we went and saw Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman.
Yeah, you can just shorten this to Professor Marston. Because it has fuck all to do with Wonder Woman.
There's not a lot.
No, going into this, I was kind of interested because Marston led a very interesting life, and a lot of that influenced Wonder Woman in her creation and production.
Yeah.
That's maybe 10 minutes of this nearly 2-hour movie, if we're being generous.
Oh, it did get the whole him inventing the lie detector thing, too.
But that didn't have anything to do with Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
We spend more time on the lie detector and its invention and eventual manifestation of how it works than we do with his conception of Wonder Woman herself. So
that was like the last... I want to say roughly... There was roughly maybe 15 minutes of that, like, in between... like the lie detector and then her being pregnant with spoilers. We're going into spoilers.
oh, who fucking cares? Practically all of this is made up. According to Wikipedia, I should say. So I don't know how reliable Wikipedia is on this, but according to Wikipedia, the grandchild of Mr. Marston spoke out and said, "I was never contacted about any of this shit, and most of this is not true." So,
I mean, like, though, would you really, like, claim a lot of that, though?
even if you don't like it, it's still history, and it's very important history. I mean, Wonder Woman was a very big deal when she came out. It is probably the small amount of Wonder Woman in her production is probably the most factual thing about this movie. Mostly because that has records that can be easily traced.
Yeah.
This movie deals a lot with Marston's personal life and his polyamorous relationship with his wife and one of his students.
Yeah.
And where they went from there, which, again, would have been fine if it doesn't open up with him basically sitting down with the prototype version of the Comics Code Authority, grilling him about Wonder Woman's bondage fetish.
Yeah, and then that all, like, led up to his, like, they started out with that and then went into, I wasn't lying, it happened later.
Just like this movie.
It went into, like, their whole relationship and then how they basically were, defamed. You could not defame. That's not the word. Well, kind
slandered
of slandered, and they had to move.
Yeah,
and she turned up pregnant. The other woman turned up pregnant with his child.
Yes.
So they had to all move and basically start this big lie and lie to everyone about Marston's kids not being his kids, at least from the other woman.
Right. So a lot of it deals with that, and if that were all it was, I would be perfectly fine with that. It deals with a lot of the underlying sexual tension and hang-ups that our country has gone through for so many years now.
Yeah.
And just how long, and kind of shining a spotlight on how most people demonized anybody who wasn't normal in their eyes.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, if you're going to roleplay with any kind of thing during the day, lock your fucking door.
Oh, for sure.
I mean,
like, their neighbor just buzzed the fuck in.
Which, that is on that neighbor, by the way.
Yeah.
That is 100% on her for just walking into somebody else's fucking house. And
it was the 40s, man.
It doesn't matter! It's good manners not to walk into somebody's fucking house. And if you do, you're just like, okay, I'm not hearing them, I'll just leave this in here. And if she hears something like, that sounds like man and woman play, I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna wander through your fucking house and catch you in the middle of your act with your wife and your mistress.
In a weird bondage threesome.
In a weird bondage threesome. So it is 100% on her for walking into the middle of that.
This movie was just kind of...
It didn't know what it wanted to be. It wanted to be...
It wanted to be like a documentary, but then it also wanted to be like this epic love story.
Yeah. And
it all just kind of like came together and was like bland and blah.
Well, it doesn't really focus on anything for too long. It repeats the same problem where the wife has some hang-ups about social norms and being judged by society. Like 3 or 4 times, and each time she's like, "Oh, fuck him." And every time when it comes to her speaking her mind, she's like, "Oh, fuck what people say." And even when she's talking to the other girl before they get in a relationship, she's like, it shouldn't matter what society says.
And then she completely...
But then she's totally on board with what society says is good or not.
Yeah, it feels like it's just kind of...
It's a little all over the place.
Like that, yeah. It felt like I was almost watching 2 different movies at the same time.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that.
And it felt like this thing wasn't particularly long. It was under 2 hours, but it just
dragged
long.
It really dragged. Honestly, if you cut all the Wonder Woman stuff out, you would probably reduce this by about 10 to 15 minutes, and it would probably be a lot more fine.
Well, that and...
I mean, because Wonder Woman has basically nothing to do with this movie.
Minus her conception was made out of bondage, and like when it was basically when they were telling Marston, don't do this, he increased what he was doing, like...
Well, and that's kind of like shows. I mean, South Park did that with the movie when they first came out.
Yeah.
They put so much in there that they eventually just said, cut it. They kept saying cut it, and they would just resubmit with like 30 seconds stripped out, minutes stripped out. And they just kept doing that until eventually they're like, fuck it, it's fine. I don't want to deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
And so I kind of like that idea that he just basically doubled down on it and said, you don't want this in here? Fine, motherfucker. I will strip stuff out, but you're gonna see some shit.
Yeah. And they were like, there's twice as much. He's like, triple it!
Yeah. No, I like that idea, honestly. I think that's good. But, yeah, this movie was just all over the place and way too boring. Because you never really get a feel for what his wife's actual position was, because she keeps waffling back and forth. Because the story is kept centered so closely on her, on his wife and him, you don't really ever get a feeling for what the other woman's all about.
Not really. There's like maybe 1 or 2 scenes.
Right.
Because like the wife was all against the bondage thing, but she was all for it, and that's when she put on not a Wonder Woman suit.
Yeah, the proto Wonder Woman suit, where she had like the knee-high boots. And
that's very much
essentially she looked like Betty Page, but minus a whip. But yeah, it just, I don't know what this movie wanted to be. It wanted to be kind of a statement on sexual proclivities and hang-ups that people have. It wanted to be a statement about where we look at our ideals at, like comic books, and how they're seen as delegitimate for actual publications and art. Yeah. It also wanted to be this documentary about this guy who kind of led a really weird lifestyle. Honestly, my greatest knowledge of Mr. Marston and the creation of Wonder Woman actually comes from a video that Linkara did from Atop the Fourth Wall when he reviewed the first Wonder Woman issue. And he goes into a little bit of backstory about Mr. Marston. I knew that. I learned nothing else.
I had a brief knowledge, not of him as a person, but of Wonder Woman. I've watched a lot of comic book documentaries. I did a paper on it in college. Like the evolution of the comic industry. I did a paper on it for my English class. I actually got a really good grade on it. But I've seen multiple documentaries, and it's basically everything I already knew. I didn't know his death, like, right as soon as he died, they stripped her powers away. Like, I knew they did that, but I didn't know it was basically right as he died and couldn't say anything. They were like, well...
Well, that's nothing new in comics. I mean, shit like that happens today.
I mean, yeah, how long did it take Bill Finger to get his name on Batman?
There you go.
And Jerry... the Superman creators, I'm name farting right now.
Siegel and Schuster.
Yeah, Jerry Siegel, Joe Schuster. Like, for real, it took them forever to get, like, their name legitimately always attached to Superman.
Right. Speaking of Superman, that did bring me, this does bring me to the greatest part of this movie.
Dude, that fucking picture.
In the office of MC Gaines, father of William Gaines, who was one of the chief founders of Mad Magazine, which is like my favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
In his office is this wonderful, huge oil canvas painting portrait of Superman in the classic Golden Age, chest thrust out, head up to the sky.
Like the
wonderful background. It's the symbols all round and shit. It looks so good, and I was just saying, I'm like, that is a classic piece of artwork I want.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
It was a really good part.
And that was when I realized was like I looked at you and I was like, but we forgot about the movie.
Honestly, I just was like, man, I love that painting. That's how boring this movie was.
Yeah.
I immediately started having to research because he kept calling him Mr. Gaines, and I'm like, this would have been around the time of EC Comics coming out, or like a few years after, and sure enough, I looked it up, and it's MC Gaines, founder of EC Comics, who later passed it on to his son, William Gaines, who went to publish magazine-type formats so they could get them sold in more places.
Yeah.
Hence the production of Mad Magazine.
We're basically turning this video into a history lesson.
Yeah, we've officially generated more actual history than this fucking movie has.
Really.
If you're really interested in this, I would say it's worth catching it on Netflix if you do. Just be prepared to do something else in between, because there's going to be points where it basically recycles the exact same plot line.
And then, like, it tells you, like, how, their life ended. Like, he died of cancer, and they lived together until she died in the 80s, and the wife lived on to be, like, 100.
Yeah, and the son eventually pretty much turned the house into a museum full of Wonder Woman memorabilia and various things that was like, these were my parents, and they helped make this thing.
And that Wonder Woman is the most iconic woman hero of all time, which...
Basically by default, though. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It seems sad, but...
There's a solid argument for a second one, but she came much later.
Exactly. I mean, Wonder Woman basically was the default female superhero for a long time.
Yeah, I would say as a second you have Supergirl, but she is always outshined by her cousin.
Right.
And Marvel Comics wise, the first like really independent hero didn't come around until like Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying though. Wonder Woman was the first one that didn't come from anybody. She was kind of her own creation. And honestly, that's what I really dislike about this movie the most, is that there's not enough in there about the creation of one of the most iconic characters.
Yeah, it's just like, bondage created Wonder Woman, and it's like,
There was more to it. There was also Marston's philosophy about submission, dominance.
And that was very...
Love and virtue. The man had some really weird theories, but they kind of make sense in a weird way, especially when you hear him voice it through the Wonder Woman comics.
Yeah.
And so it just felt really, really weird.
Like he used...
And not in a good weird, where you're taken to an uncomfortable spot and you're forced to question some of your things. You're just like, I don't know what you're saying, and you're not saying it well.
Like, it was basically saying that Marston put his disc theory in the Wonder Woman comics, but...
You might want a little annotation as to what disc theory means.
Yeah, it's his... That's a long...
Jared will put a picture in there that shows you what disc theory means.
No.
You're demonstrated a few in this movie.
I don't think I could get away with that on the internet. I might not be able to.
You can give a descriptor. You can have the words pop up across the screen.
I will do that. But otherwise, if I used photograph, like it would... might get in trouble. Cause,
go get yourself a Tijuana Bible, kids.
Yep. Also, this thing... There was moments it wanted to be softcore porn.
Yeah, it goes a little bit into bondage, but it doesn't really...
And we see, like, 2 boob shots.
Yeah.
Just,
I mean, those were nice, but, I mean, you know, unless the ladies are into ladies, they don't have much to look at besides Luke Evans' sunken chest.
Nope.
God knows I didn't want to see that. I don't see why anybody else would want to either. But you do see his butt. I want to say, like, wasn't there one scene where you see his butt? I don't know.
Don't care.
The point is, for a movie about sexual proclivities and hang-ups, this one is decidedly...
weird.
No, it's not weird. That's the problem.
It's too normal.
It is way too normalized for a movie that wants to... It feels like, kind of like 50 Shades of Grey was, where it was just like, oh, let's just kind of tiptoe around the whole S&M bondage scene and not really
and then when they're like, you want to go get a drink, alcohol is illegal. They very easily always have access to ridiculous amounts of booze.
Hey, it was the 30s. I mean,
yeah.
Speakeasies were everywhere. You just had to know the right knocking phrase.
No.
It was shave and haircut.
Alright, and...
That being said, we had to find ways to start entertaining ourselves during the movie. It's a good thing the theater was empty, so...
Yeah, that's why I wanted to see this one before we saw the ones that we're going to see tomorrow, just because I wasn't sure if this thing would be in there much longer.
I don't think it will, but unlike Blade Runner, I really understand why it won't.
I've sold maybe, like, I worked the box office today. I think I sold 3 tickets to this thing. Well,
I understand. It doesn't go enough.
It's opening week and it's in our smallest theater.
It takes way too many liberties about a man's personal life that most people are going to come and see to try and learn about the creation and formation of what Wonder Woman was initially, and they're not going to get a lot of it.
No.
So, I mean, you're disappointing a lot of people with this.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's about it. That's all I got.
Put more wiener shots in movies, Hollywood. The ladies deserve to look at something, too. Not just guys. And guys who like guys deserve the wiener shots as well.
Don't go back to Happy Death Day. Don't take us there.
I don't remember wiener shots in Happy Death Day.
No, but there was the dude watching gay porn on his computer in that one.
See, that shouldn't have been something that... And she didn't really drag it out. She walked up to him and it was just like, you need to come to terms with who you are. He's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I love banging chicks. I get that buzz. I'll go crush some right now. You just watch.
That didn't happen.
He goes to the gym and lifts a bunch. He's like, I gotta work it out, man. I gotta work it out of me. Bro, will you spot me? No, further down, bro.
That didn't happen.
It should have, though. Would have made that movie a lot more interesting.
We did not hit the jackpot on movies tonight.
No, again, I'm not... This is one of those I'm kind of torn about. I'm not upset that I saw it, but at the same time, I couldn't recommend anybody else seeing this. Not in theaters.
It's just one of those... This thing will be gone from theaters by the time...
Yeah, if you have any ideas about seeing this, just understand that it's not going to be a movie about the creation of Wonder Woman, so...
Not really, no.
And it's going to very heavily romanticize Malton's life and what happened between him, his wife, and the other lady.
Yeah.
So just bear in mind that this is very, very romanticized historical drama.
Fiction.
I wouldn't say it's all fiction, but it's heavily romanticized historical drama.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Alright, guys, well.
Just watch the theory of everything and occasionally look at a Wonder Woman comic book.
Yeah.
You'll get about the same reaction.
I think that's all we got.
That's all we got. I'm glad we were able to talk about this longer than Happy Death Day.
Not much longer. We've had a problem talking about movies lately. We need to fix that.
Whose channel is it, Jared?
It's my channel!
Exactly, so who needs to fix this problem?
You do! No, I do.
Way to be a manager there. I have a problem, so you need to fix it!
And then they need to go to your channel!
Indeed.
Go to his channel, and we did something with Wonder Woman once, didn't we? Didn't we use her in Injustice?
I don't know, probably.
Probably. Yeah, go watch that. Go watch a video. Go watch Sean.
There was one part that I laughed really hard to myself at. I'm a big fan of, like, the Cinema Snob.
Yeah. And
he'll have parts when he'll do a movie that doesn't have anything special and it's just bad. They'll occasionally cut to a spot that was awkward and he'll just sit there. And then they banged. And when it came to the part where she chases her down in the auditorium, I kind of walked out to go take a leak, and as she stands there trying to cover her, I'm just hard cut, and then they banged. I walk in and they're banging, I'm just like, fuck, it doesn't work! You've ruined it!
Alright, guys, well, until next time, we'll see you guys later.
Actually, that's a really good recommendation now that I think about it. If you want a good history of Wonder Woman, go watch Linkar's review of the first Wonder Woman comic. He gets into about as much of the actual history as you do in this movie. And you get some history of Wonder Woman.
Dun, dun, dun.
Later, everybody.
Side note, later.
Yeah.